We think we're about to get our picture took.
I got to tell the story about getting on the Bats team originally, because it's a classic.
I guess we're got to wait our turn.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Guys.
no, all three of you can go together. So we have you guys do first is just go in order. I guess your name, the year you played, and what your position was.
Tell me when to start.
Oh, we're going.
Oh, we're going. Okay, I'm Eric Test. I played with the Bats in 1975 and 1979. I played center and fullback.
I'm Wade Killifer. I played 72, went on the European trip in 72, played 8 and a little second row.
And I'm Bruce Kelm. I played with the Bats between 85 and 90. And we played in the Monterey Championship game in 87. I played 8 and 7.
All right, so
You don't look like an 8 to me.
I did at the time, man. And I brought the wood, believe it or not. I did.
So what was it like to play for the Bats?
Well, it was a great experience for me, straight out of college, and being able to play some high-level rugby, and got to travel around. Made a trip to Canada, made a trip to the British Isles, and really exposed me to the broader world of club rugby.
Yeah, Eric and I both played at Stanford, and we'd always played against the Bats, and it was the one game that you had to get up for because these guys, tremendous athletes, tremendous culture. The Bats were just the whole bat essence, as Michael would say, was pervasive in the league. And so when I graduated, it was just the place you wanted to go get some bat essence.
And I would agree with that. I played in the Midwest in college, and then I moved to England and played in England, and I also played in France. I won a national championship in France, university side, and then I played for Rosslyn Park in London. And so when I moved to the Bay Area, the only team I wanted to play for was the Bats. So I had no idea how to contact the team or get involved with the team. So I called the sports desk of the Chronicle, and who should answer the phone? Al Moss. And he tried to convince me to play for the Paxos in Palo Alto because I was living in Mountain View at the time. I just moved over with the shirt on my back from England with my wife, and I kept saying, well, I heard about this team called the Bats. I want to play for them. I want to really play for the Bats. And so he finally, he said, well, they're having a tryout at Stanford. Show up at the football field, the original Stanford football field. And I did that Saturday, and I played for him for 5 years. And I'm so glad that Al broke down and said, you know, come play for the Bats, because it's been a great life experience for me. And passed it on to my 2 boys, and they're both playing rugby too. And as a matter of fact, Eric's son and my son are both playing on the national sevens team as we speak. So how cool is that?
Yes. So you could just this is kind of like a free for all. So if you have any like stories, adventures, misadventures that you want to share, you know, just shoot.
Well, I always remember my first game as a Bat. I had a good game. We got back in the locker room. We were with the shitty locker room in San Francisco and Golden Gate Park.
Polo ground.
You know, those horrible things. And I started taking off my gear and sitting down, and Michael comes over, Stepanian comes over and says, good game. He says, but there's something about, he said, you know, you got a small dick. He said, this is what a big dick looks like, and until you have a big dick like this, you can't really be a Bat. You can edit that anyway you want to.
Oh, man.
Was Stepanian still playing when you were
No, it sounds like a true story to me, though. Yeah.
I think my favorite memory with the Bats was playing against the Old Blues for the Golden Gate Championship, and 1979. It was the first year of the national championship, and the winner of that game got to represent the Pacific Coast and go to the national championships. And we played the Old Blues, and we played them even in regulation and went to overtime. And they won on a penalty kick on a bogus offsides call and some ruck somewhere. And the Old Blues ended up winning that game after we had beaten them twice in the regular season. They beat us in overtime, went to the national championships, and won the national championship game. So it was a great memory. We were, it should have been the Bats that won that national championship. And I think that was the first national championship game that was played that year. So
I remember being in Romania with the Bats. We went over, and Jim Waste took us over. We didn't know this at the time, but he's working with the CIA, and he took the team over there to be a subversive element in the communist countries, and we were highly subversive. They would want us to walk a certain way, and of course you can't tell 30 American rugby players where to walk. We would just go the other way, and they had all these spooks that were assigned to each one of us. And of course we were doing weaves and changing clothes and changing our hats, and it was so fun. These spooks would just show up the next morning and at the hotel to watch us come out, and they'd obviously been chewed out over the night about trying to chase down these crazy American rugby players.
Well, my favorite memory of the Bats is being down in Monterey the night before the finals of the '87 championship, and we were in the finals against the Old Blues, and talking to Willie Moore in a bar, and just about what a great tradition the Monterey tournament was, and what a phenomenal tradition the Bats were. And I felt so honored to be on that team and to run out on that field and have your name announced. And there must have been 2,000-3,000 people there, because it was a big deal at the time in '87 to be in the finals of the Monterey tournament. And we ended up losing the Old Blues, but they ran out a fresh set of 15 legs like they can do, because they were so deep at the time, and we pretty much played the same 15, 18 guys. And it was just an incredible experience, and I'll never forget that. That was phenomenal, playing in the '87 finals at the Monterey. It was a Super Bowl, basically, of rugby at the time, and it was an amazing experience, and I'm so proud I was part of it.
Tell me about some of the injuries you guys sustained while playing the rugby.
I want to tell one injury I had. I was playing flanker for UCLA, and he was playing scrum half, and he would get real close to the scrum and put the ball in, and I would grab him.
Yeah, you were cheating.
I'd grab him and pull him down and let the hooker step on him. And I did that about twice. And after about the third time, he wound up and hit me.
Yeah, I told you beforehand you were cheating.
He said if you do that again, I'm going to hit you. He hit me so hard, he knocked me into like Thursday the next week. It was a great shot. And I woke up with a smile on my face because I deserved every shot of it.
It's the only good right hand I've ever thrown.
I was pleased to get it. I had it coming.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the greatest memory of rugby I have is coaching my two boys in high school, and they ended up playing at San Diego State, and what a great legacy that is when your kids play the game you love, and they're getting the same thing out of it that you got, which is camaraderie, strength of character and spirit, sportsmanship, all the great things that rugby gives.
Violence.
Yeah, violence.
That's okay.
That's right.
It's okay to be
Team
violent as
violence.
long as you're a sportsman afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But Eric would agree. I mean, our boys are playing on the same team, and it's such a lifelong pursuit. It's a culture, and the thing that really inspires me about the game of rugby is that it's still being taught the same way. You're not seeing unsportsmanlike conduct like you see in the NFL or tatted up in the NBA or what. There's something pure about the game of rugby, and I think it's getting through to the next generation, and it's the coolest thing of all because it's what we all got about it, and it's what our kids are getting about it, and it's a lifelong pursuit. You're a rugger when you play, and you're a rugger until you die, and that's the coolest part about rugby.
So can you tell me what is BATessence?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to explain.
It came for me. It came. The Bats were originally an Olympic club team. They broke off, and Stepanian came, and he brought. They had this attitude of superiority, and Stepanian was able to voice it particularly well. And like I told you, everybody had to have a big dick. Everybody had to bring it hard, and everybody knew that the Bats had the best talent of anybody who played. Now, they might have not won every game, but they had the talent, they had the class, they had the old school players. They played well, they played hard, they played fair, and that was, I think, what I think about BATessence.
Yeah, well, it was also, I mean, there were no coaches, there was no hierarchy. It was the team, and the team was, like Wade said, just tremendous athletes, and all put their shoulders together and kind of took on the world, and it was, everybody was. Had everybody else's back. It was not an individual type of effort. It was all for the team, and with a great group of guys who played hard for 80 minutes and then partied hard for as long as it took to party afterwards. So, it was a tremendous group of guys.
To me, the Bats' essence always was always play hard, and the chief rival always was the Old Blues, and they always had the fresh recruits from Cal coming into their team, so it was always very difficult to play against them. And this is in the mid to late 80s, and I remember one game particularly where we went over to their place in Alameda, and we just knew we were going to take them that day, and they had 5 Eagles on their team at the time, but we were coached by Frank Boisvert, and we just had this self-belief, and we beat the Old Blues 36-18. And so for me, that's my most memorable game of rugby is to be playing against absolute quality athletes at the time, probably the best club team in the country, and just having that self-belief in each other and bringing it on the pitch that day. And wow, we had a hell of a party. It was in Jack Clark's bar afterwards, and it was cool because the Old Blues were just really, really sportsmanlike about it, and they just said, you kicked our butt that day. And that to me is the essence of rugby anyway, is just play hard and believe in yourself, and let the chips fall on the field, and then afterwards have a great time.
How would you describe your overall experience with the Bats?
It was tremendous. How
many teams did you play for?
Well, I played I played at Stanford. I played for the Bats, and then I played for the Washington Rugby Club back on the East Coast. And certainly there was a much better camaraderie on the West Coast in rugby during the 70s than there was on the East Coast. There was a lot of thuggery on the East Coast in the rugby, and on the West Coast it was a lot more enjoyable. Everybody enjoyed playing, enjoyed partying together. It was more of a brotherhood, where it was more of a war on the East Coast. So
Yeah, I played for Stanford and the Bats and UCLA, but they all came out of the same tradition of play, which was out of good fellowship and hard, clean play. The Bats, the other teams I played for, people would transition through, but the Bats had this core that really defined rugby in that era, and so that was a little bit different. That they continued this aura with the same people for years and years.
And I started my rugby career in the Midwest, in Appleton, Wisconsin, of all places. I helped found a team in Appleton, and then I helped found Northwestern Rugby Club in Chicago. So I was a neophyte, really, until I went to Europe and really discovered the game. So to come to a club that had incredible tradition and got it, so to speak, was great, because I was taught absolutely the same tradition in Europe. It's all about putting out on the field and then being friends afterwards, and it's an amazing culture. The world rugby culture is phenomenal. I'm sure New Zealand pulled it off really well. I wasn't there at the World Cup, but it's just absolutely phenomenal when you get international rugby players together. We're all of one mind, we're all of one spirit, and it's just a great, great culture. It's a great game, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it in my life. That's the way I feel.
All right.
I think you got us covered.
All
huh?
right, yeah.
No?